Today is September 3rd, 2024, and welcome to the 404th episode of the Videogames podcast. Here in this show, I talk about any game at all, including new stuff, old stuff, and anything in between. My name is Brad Galloway. I am the one-man host of this show, and I'm also the editor of GameCritics.com, a website that uses the full range of review scores from 0 to 10, while also offering full accessibility information on every review we publish. Hello! Thank you for joining me today. And before we roll on with the show, I just want to give a quick apology to everybody who was waiting for the episode to drop on our usual Sunday night. This week, or I guess the last week, has been a pretty busy one for me. I'm a dad, I'm a husband, I run Game Critics, I do the podcast, I do some other stuff offline that has nothing to do with games, and this last week was just really crazy busy. Now, I'm usually pretty busy, so that's not like a big surprise, but I had a new project pop up kind of out of the blue unexpectedly, and it was a big one, and it's kind of a high profile one. Pretty excited about it, and I wish I could share some details, but I can't. So it's still in development, and if things come to fruition, I will be more than happy to make the announcement here on the show and share with all my friends and all you, the listeners, but can't say anything right now, but more details to come on that. But just know that's kind of what ate up all my time. And if you want to blame anything for the show being late, blame that thing. But also, it's kind of a good thing. So anyway, let's get back to it, and let's get on with the show. As usual, going to be kicking things off with housekeeping, where I discuss tidbits, news, items, industry happenings, and basically anything randomly game adjacent that has caught my eye in the last 7 days. And there's been a fair number of things this week. First up, Hideaki Itsuno, one of the game developers over at Capcom, one of my all-time favorite publishing houses, is leaving after like 30 years. I mean, that in itself is a huge career. And Mr. Itsuno has worked on many games that I have personally enjoyed very much. I believe his first game was Star Gladiator. I think that was PS1, if I'm not mistaken. 3D Capcom fighting game with characters that were based like in space. They had like space themes. It was a little bit like Star Wars-ish, kind of a Capcom version of that. Pretty cool game, honestly, and I believe it had a sequel called Plasma Sword. I think they're going to be re-released on some of the upcoming Capcom collections that are coming to Switch, so maybe check it out. But that was where Mr. Itsuno got his start. Went on to work on Dragon's Dogma 1 and 2, also worked on Devil May Cry. I'm sure most of you have heard of those games. So he was a guy who was a mover and a shaker. He did some stuff. Leaving after 30 years, didn't say why, but did say that he is not retiring. He is going to move on to do his own thing somewhere else. I don't know if he's starting his own studio, or maybe he got a job at somebody else's place. Who knows? But nothing but best wishes for Hideaki Itsuno. A fan of his work for sure. I wish him nothing but the best, and hopefully he's going to be churning out something super exciting in the near future. So congratulations and good luck, Mr. Itsuno. Next, a couple days ago, there was a Nintendo Direct. It was a two-parter, which was kind of unusual. They started off with the Indie Direct, and then they went right into the Partner Direct. So altogether, it was like an hour plus of content. Now, that's cool and that's fine, but I have got used to the Nintendo shows being like a half an hour, kind of bounce in, maybe sit with the family, eat some dinner, watch the Direct, bounce out. An hour was, I think, a little bit more than I wanted to sit and watch, but whatever, it's fine. I'm happy to get the new content anyway. Lots of good announcements. Just going to run through them real quickly. Excited about Coffee Talk Tokyo. That is the third game in the Coffee Talk series. I think those are marvelous. Peglin just got released. It's an indie game about kind of like a cross between Peggle and an RPG. Where you star as a little goblin. I just got code for that from the developer, so thank you very much. Not going to be talking about it on the show. Didn't have time this week, but I will bring it up probably next week. We saw Date Everything, which was like a riot. I've heard of this game, but I had not seen it in motion, and I didn't know what it looked like. So basically, it's a dating simulator where you can date like literally anything in your environment. In the video, they showed somebody dating, I think it was a toaster, a window, a computer, like a sandwich or whatever. Like, it was all those things. But it's not like you were just dating those objects. It was those objects were anthropomorphized into human form. So, like, for example, the window person, I believe that was a woman. And on her shirt, she had like 4 panels that kind of sort of looked like a pane of glass, but she looked like a human being otherwise. I think the toaster guy had like, I don't know, a hat that looked like a toaster or something. You get the idea, right? Like these household objects were made into like people. And apparently, I want to say there was like more than oh gosh, I might be getting this wrong, but I think there was more than 100 objects to date, and you can kind of just go back and forth and just do that whole thing. It looked like a riot. I like dating games. I like visual novels. This one seems whack in like the best possible way. So very excited about Date Everything. Moth Cubit looked extremely interesting. You're kind of a bug in a bug world, but then you get shrank down to be bug size where all the rest of the bugs are human size. Kind of trippy, really cool, like kind of art style. Very interested to see what's going on. It seems like a lot of just really unusual mechanics on display. It seems like an RPG that's going to maybe be pushing the boundaries of what we expect from RPGs. So quite interesting. They also showed Plucky Squire, which I think a lot of people are jazzed about right now. It's the cutie cartoon platform / action game, I guess, where you can be 2D and 3D. And it looks like you pop out of the book of a storybook page, and then you kind of walk over to another book and like insert yourself in that page. Kind of hard to express like how impressive it looks through a podcast, but do yourself a favor, check out the YouTube trailer or whatever. It looks pretty dope, and people have been fired up for it for quite a while. So that one is coming to the Switch. They're doing I want to say like a DX remix or something of Shovel Knight. I don't know exactly how much Shovel Knight they're going to remix, but Shovel Knight is pretty cool. I have played most of those games. I have enjoyed most of those games. I think there's a couple I haven't gotten to. I think some of the most recent ones, like the Shovel Knight roguelike, I only played for like a minute. And I think there's also a Shovel Knight game that's kind of like Mr. Driller, where you're like digging downwards, and it's kind of like a puzzle game. Shovel Knight has been in like a lot of stuff, yo. So I haven't played all of it, but I believe I have played through all of the core games. They're all quite good. Very like 2D Mega Man-ish sort of action, some revisiting of worlds, upgrades and stuff. So I would be very interested in seeing this DX remix, especially because I was kind of kicking around the idea of just replaying the entire series on my own time. So if there is a brand new version coming out, maybe I'll do that instead. So that's always good news. What is it? Oh yeah, Metal Slug Tactics. Been excited for this one for a while. Can't wait to get my hands on it. It is a isometric turn-based tactical game featuring characters from the Metal Slug universe, which is traditionally a 2D hyper shoot 'em up with like crazy animation. If you never played a Metal Slug, definitely check that out. The animation is what it's known for, but like all these crazy missions, big bosses, colorful explosions, zombies, camels, all sorts of stuff. I love the Metal Slug series. I've played many of them with my son, and seeing it transformed into a tactical version, music to my ears personally. A couple more other things, Europa, and there was one that was about like oh gosh, I forget the name of it, but you were like exploring a planet on like a hoverboard, and there was some combat that looked pretty good. Lots of stuff on display, not just more farm simulators and JRPGs, although there were some of those, but I appreciated the diversity was a little bit broader than normal this time around. If you want more details, you can go ahead and check out, many lists online, check out the show is still available, check out a breakdown somewhere, but I'm glad to see that Nintendo is still going great guns. Speaking of which, somewhat related, kind of like via Plucky Squire, but I was playing Capes, which I talked about last week. I did a circle back on that. Still enjoying it. Still going to be one of my favorite games of the year now that they have put in the difficulty patch. It is just like night and day changed the game to be like way, way, way more playable, which is exactly what I wanted. But as I was watching the opening credits of Capes, I started to notice that it was funded by Epic Mega Grants. And I'm like, I feel like I've seen Epic Mega Grants pop up a lot lately. So I went to their website to check it out. And man, I didn't realize they were funding so much. I mean, it makes sense because Epic makes, money hand over fist. I mean, they probably sleep on like mattresses stuffed full of cash or whatever passes for cash these days. But I, was looking at the list, and I was really impressed and surprised by how many games they have probably not like entirely funded, but have chipped in on. I mean, stuff like Capes, Omno, Railgrade, Deliver Us Mars, The Plucky Squire, and about like 100 other games that I cannot name right now. But if you go to the Epic Mega Grant website, they list like all these games. And I was like really impressed with a lot of them. I had played many of them. And I guess whoever's in charge of Epic and the Mega Grants program is doing a pretty good job. I mean, there's plenty of indies there I'd never seen, lots of games I wasn't familiar with, but like a good chunk of them were games that I was like, okay, cool. These are like experimental and they're small, and I dig the vibe of most of these. So it seems like someone's getting it pretty right over there. Just wanted to give a shout out. And if you are an indie developer trying to get a small game off the ground, you got something cooking, maybe check out the Epic Mega Grant site for yourself. It says they pay between $5,000 and $250,000 per projects. Some projects receiving up to $500,000. So if you're an indie who needs a little bit of cash to get off the ground, maybe this is the route for you. You'd be in pretty good company. There's some pretty cool games out there that have gotten the same funding. So just FYI. Also, last little bit of housekeeping this week comes to me from Andre Brock. So thank you, Andre. Really appreciate this. Andre reached out to me on Twitter and wanted me to read an article that he found, and he was right on the money. It was extremely relevant to my interests and a good article. It was written by John Walker, who I'm sure many of you are familiar with. He's been around for a long time, known as Botherer on Twitter, and I think that's his handle elsewhere. Prolific writer, great writer. He wrote an essay about Star Wars Outlaws, and it's called Star Wars Outlaws is a Crappy Masterpiece. So that's a pretty provocative title. I wanted to check this out. And I think the title is pretty right on. Essentially, what John is talking about in this article is that when you look at the world of Star Wars Outlaws, which I'm sure some of you have played by now, it's pretty brilliant, right? Like there's these vistas and lots of details all over the place. In the article, John calls out just like one patch of wall inside one of the bases he was in. It had like metal cladding and some lights and some circuits, and he's like, look at this friggin' wall, like it's a fucking masterpiece, like it's so detailed and so perfect to the period that it's supposed to be, like the chunky Star Wars kind of vibe aesthetic going on. And he's like, this is all great when you look at like the mountains and the gutters and the sewers and the lighting and everything. If this is like incredible that we can make these virtual worlds so full of detail, so easily explorable. I think he even says in the article, like, if you had shown this to a human being like 100 years ago, they would have thought it was like a marvel of wizardry or magic or a gift from God or something, how incredible this was. And he's not wrong, right? But then he goes on to say, and it sucks because we spend so much time making these worlds and spending all this time and energy on the details, and then we plonk some like bog standard boring ass gameplay into it. And he's not wrong. I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of Outlaws. I know some people listening to this podcast probably dig it, and that's cool. I don't mean to yuck your yum, but and it's not just Outlaws too. There's other games as well where you have these wonderful worlds, like, just you see the craftsmanship that went into something like this, the detail, the planning, the 3D modeling. But then if you've got a boring ass game or a game that just doesn't play well or doesn't really leverage any new ideas, it's a waste. It's a waste to have such a beautiful world. And one of the items that he mentioned specifically is that it's a shame that someone can take a game like Outlaws and look at it and play it and be like, this game sucks, I don't like it, 6 out of 10, whatever. But 6 out of 10 for the gameplay or the story or the janky facial animations or whatever. But if you take that stuff out and look at the world specifically, like what a beautiful piece of art the world is. And so, I get it, right? I get it. I get what he's saying for sure. I don't know how you handle that. I mean, I don't know that we are going to have a review system where it's broken up into two pieces, where one review is for the gameplay and the other review is for the world creation. I mean, that would be kind of interesting. But I get what he's saying. Why go to the trouble of making these wonderful worlds if we're not doing anything wonderful with the gameplay? It doesn't really make a lot of sense. So, John, I'm with you. I don't have the answer for this, but I definitely feel what you're putting down there. Andre, thank you very much for sending that to me. It was a good read, and I bet a lot of people listening to this podcast would like to read it also. And if anybody has thoughts or comments on that, definitely send them in. And as I mentioned to Andre on Twitter, this kind of reminds me of that phrase that's going around. I forget the exact wording of it, but it's something like, stop making AAA games and start making games that are uglier and shorter and pay your developers more money, right? Like, and I agree with that. And I think it's kind of related here, where we don't really need to spend all that time and effort on these shiny graphics, the backgrounds, mountains that are made of pixel perfect dirt clods or whatever. Just like, if you're not going to kick up the gameplay, don't bother kicking up the world, and let's not burn our developers out and run them into the ground by creating these places that just people look at for a second and move on because the gameplay is dull, right? So I think there's something there that we should probably look at as an industry and as a society and as a culture. So anyway, there you go. Great article. Thanks again, Andre, and thanks to John Walker for writing that. All right, so before we get to the main portion of the show, just want to quickly remind people that you can help support this podcast by going to patreon.com/the So Video Games Podcast. Every little bit helps with the cost of hosting, even $1. And I hate to even say this, but the cost of hosting literally just went up $10 for no reason that I can see. So I guess greedflation, capitalism, solar rays, who knows? If you want to kick in $1, that would be greatly appreciated. And of course, a huge thanks to all of our Patreon supporters who are already putting their money where their ears is. All right, Also, heads up, there's a So Videogames Discord, which any listener is welcome to join free of charge. If you want to join up and continue the conversation after the show, just shoot me an email and I will send you the details. All right, folks. So this has been a weird week. Like I said earlier at the top of the show, it's been really, really busy. And today, as I was supposed to record the show, you don't know this because this is like one seamless audio for you, but I've actually started and stopped the show, I think 4 times because of different things that have popped up. So I'm going to be kind of changing the agenda because I'm just running out of daylight. I was planning on doing a full suite of games plus some Q&A plus some TV and movies at the end, but I don't have enough time for that. And don't feel too bad because I will come back again and do another episode shortly. Just so everybody knows, Ron sent in a question, DC sent in a question, and John sent in a question. And they were good questions. I think I'm going to just hold all of those for the next episode. And I may do a short episode after this just to kind of catch back up. It's going to be probably about top 10s. I think both John and DC asked about top 10s. And I think that's something that I would like to talk about for a minute or two. So it's probably larger than the normal segment. So if you guys were waiting to hear me talk about those games this episode, I just want to say thank you for sending in those questions. I will absolutely get to them in the next episode, and it's probably going to be mostly a Q&A focused episode, so we're going to give a lot of time to those questions. Really appreciate it. But for now, we're going to skip those just for the sake of expediency. I think I may even skip the movie stuff too. We'll see. All right, so what's left in the show? Well, let's get right to it. First, Crypt Custodian. And before I get into this, just a heads up, as I normally like to give, all of the games I'm going to be talking about in today's episode were provided to me free of charge by the developers or the publishers. So just first, thanks to everybody who sent me a code. And just FYI, in accordance with the FCC regulations, these were provided to me for free. Okay, so Crypt Custodian, which is actually very hard to pronounce. I did not leave this in the show, but I mispronounced Crypt Custodian like 9 times. And I felt like such a huge idiot. I needed to cut those out, but it is tough to say. It's almost like a tongue twister. Anyway, Crypt Custodian. It is a 2D, I guess Metroidvania is the title that's applied to it, and I think that sort of makes sense. But rather than being the 2D side on, it's kind of like a top down. Looks a little bit like, I don't know, old school Zelda or something, like your character's there. You're walking around a flat surface, stuff like that. So it's 2D, isometric or top down, God view, whatever you want to call it. And you are a cat who, I think in the opening cutscene, you get run over by a car. It's not 100% clear, but you look like a normal Earth cat who apparently gets killed somehow. And then you go up to cat purgatory or something like that. And you become more of like an anthropomorphic cat. You've got like more of a human shape. You get a coat and stuff like that. And then the actual intro is actually pretty nice because you're kind of walking around. You meet another animal. I think it's a frog, if I'm not mistaken. And he kind of says, oh, you're dead. Now you're here and you're going to meet the person who regulates everything. And they'll decide whether you go to heaven or some other place. All you got to do is just get there. And so it becomes kind of like a tutorial of sorts, where they show you how to jump and double jump and roll and all that kind of stuff. And so you go through this little windy path and you pick up your weapon, which is a broom. And then you have to destroy a bunch of pots to get through the main path to get to where the judge of the dead is. And you get there and she reviews your life. And if I remember correctly, it was something like, oh, you were a nice kitty and your people loved you and everything's cool, so I guess you go to heaven. And she's just about to send you off. And then she's like, wait a minute, I forgot about this. And so they review like the last 30 seconds of gameplay where you had to destroy those pots. And she's like, oh, nope, you're actually bad, kitty. Get out of here. And then she sends you into like, I don't know, the land of the dead or whatever. It's not hell. I mean, it's just like this land of the dead. You get sentenced to clean up for all eternity. Feels like kind of a raw deal, but it's kind of a fun way to start off the game. And that's not much of a spoiler. This is literally like the first 3 minutes of the game. I mean, so I don't think that's much of a secret to let out of the bag there. So you start the game and then you have to kind of just go around. It's kind of directionless, I think, and maybe some people dig that. I wish I had a little bit more of a direction, but you're kind of just wandering around this open world, and the map kind of shows you, there's a mini map in the corner, kind of shows you where you can go ish. It's not the most accurate map, but it's pretty close. And you just kind of wander around. You hit bugs and animals with your broom, kill them to collect scraps. You can destroy scrap piles because remember, you're supposed to be cleaning up, right? So you see the scrap piles, you hit those, and all the scrap you collect can be traded in back at the store for some upgrades where you get special abilities and whatever stuff like that. Typical stuff. And so you kind of wander around and just do that for a while. There's not a lot of story that I saw. I didn't play it for a whole heck of a lot of time. It was just fine. Like I thought it was okay. The jumping is a little bit weird because in a 2D side-on situation, jumping's real precise, and we all know how that works. But in the overhead view, it was sometimes a little bit tough to tell distance. I think there's a shadow or something like that kind of helps you judge distance, which is good. Smart move to include that. But it still felt a little bit wonky. Not terrible, but you move around and it's okay. The fighting feels okay, like pretty simple and straightforward. You probably get a lot more upgrades and abilities later on, which is fine. But you're basically just wandering around this open world, finding whatever you can find. There's lots of these little puzzles where you're kind of batting around a glowing energy ball, and if you can get it to ricochet into the right hole or something, like it opens up usually a chest or an upgrade or something like that. So those are fine. A lot of those puzzles, which were like, okay, they were kind of fun like the first couple times, but then there was like a lot of them. And I'm like, okay, these are getting kind of old. I wish there was some other kind of puzzle. And then just the fighting is okay, pretty straightforward. Fought a boss. The boss was like a little bit tougher than I expected, but still got through it okay. And then you come back, and I don't know, like I don't know. It just didn't click with me. I think it's cute. Visually, I think it's cute. I think overall, aside from a little bit of difficulty with the jumping, it controls pretty well. Like it feels pretty smooth. If you like wandering and exploring, I bet this is probably going to be right up your alley. If you like cats, probably up your alley. But it was just fine. It just was fine. It kind of felt a little bit directionless to me, and I just not a big fan of just kind of generally wandering around and just looking for stuff. So Crypt Custodian, yeah, it was all right. It was all right. I mean, I didn't hate it. I didn't think it was great, but I didn't hate it either. But I think if you like Metroidvanias or cats, you're probably more in the bucket for this one than I am. So there you go. God damn it. I can't say that. Crypt Custodian. I guess I'll leave that one in. I don't want to edit anymore. Okay. Let's see. Next up is Verne, The Shape of Fantasy. This is a 2D pixel-based, I don't even know what to call it. It's kind of like a point and click, kind of not like a point and click, kind of like a puzzle game, sort of not a puzzle game. This is starring Jules Verne, the famous sci-fi author from a million years ago. And he is on board the Nautilus, the famous submarine that was featured in 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, the book, and the Disney movie, if you've seen that. And I think there's another movie even after that as well. And the whole thing kind of starts off a little bit in media res. You're kind of in the middle of a war or battle, or you're getting boarded or something like that. And so things kind of happen pretty quickly. They want you to go do some stuff on the sub, and the sub ends up being like really large. Now, I don't know about you, but I've actually been in a submarine before, and they're pretty small. Even the big nuclear submarines, which is the one I was on, loaded with nuclear missiles. I was like 6 inches away from a nuclear missile. Yeah, they're tiny, man. And so whenever I play a game that has a submarine that's like huge, it always makes me laugh a little bit because it's just really goofy. Just as a quick side note, as I was taking a tour of this sub, I noticed that you can see the missile silos. They were like, vertical, because if the sub gets up to the surface and needs to launch, the missiles go straight up. But between the missiles were bunks, and the sailors were literally sleeping in bunks between the nuclear missile silos. That to me was creepy as fuck and very scary, but the sailors did not seem to mind at all. All the staircases were very tall and narrow. They were really hard to navigate. Everything felt super cramped. And the thing I remember most about that sub is that when I got to the pilot's seat, you really, there's no windows obviously or anything because you're in a submarine. His view screen was like terribly small, and the steering wheel that he was steering the entire sub with was tiny. It was like probably smaller than an actual driving wheel that you use for like a PlayStation or an Xbox. It was even smaller than that. And I remember looking at that going, that's the fucking thing they used to control this entire sub. This is whack. I thought it would be a little bit more ornate, some decorations or something more fancy. So subs are tiny, even the big ones are. And so that is not the case with the Nautilus. So the Nautilus is fucking huge. It's as big as like a town, which is weird. So you end up going on these micro objectives. Like at first they're like, oh, find a way through this, I don't know, this hallway or something. And there's a blockage or whatever. So you got to go up these ladders and through these hallways and down these other ladders and around. And it's pretty easy to get lost sometimes. It took me a little while to realize there were maps on the wall. They weren't really called out very well. you have to kind of like walk around, and as you get close to a map, it'll be highlighted. And so you're like, oh, okay, this is where the map is. Okay, check that out. I would rather just have a map, but if you got to check the wall for the map, I guess that's fine. And so it just was like a lot of like walking back and forth and trying to get around obstacles. Now, the main hook of this game, which I didn't realize at first, is that you find some kind of artifact. I want to say it's an Atlantean artifact. I could be wrong. But basically, it's like a time fixing artifact. I don't want to say time travel, because that's not exactly what happens. But you get to like some obstacle. Let's say that, for example, you're in the sub, you're in a hallway, and a bunch of boxes have fallen over, and you can't get through the boxes. So you activate your artifact. It seems to be unlimited use. I think there's a little bit of cooldown, but you can use it again after that. So you activate the thing, and a little text prompt pops up at the bottom of the screen. And sometimes there's only one choice, and sometimes there's two choices, maybe three choices. And it wants you to reset time in order to change the outcome that led to you being blocked in that hallway. So, for example, in the case of the boxes, one of the choices might be the walls didn't shake that much here. And if you click that one, then the boxes go back to where they were. Or you could say something like, the other choice might be, the boxes were secured with leather straps. And then all of a sudden straps will appear and the boxes are still out of your way. So you do a lot of those little things in addition to like finding items and stuff like that. So you walk through, maybe there's like another hatch or something that won't turn, and then you use the time device and it'll be like, oh, someone put oil on this and prevented it from getting rusty. And then you hit the button and then all of a sudden you can like open the hatch again. So there's a lot of those going on, which is kind of okay, but I didn't really get to a choice where it felt big. It kind of just felt like I'm just pushing a fix button and I just keep going along my merry way. Not super, I guess, as impressive or as big, I guess, as I would expect a time fix device to be. But then again, I didn't really get that far in the game. I kind of was doing these smaller tasks. So I guess it makes sense. You wouldn't do anything like world altering right off the bat, to be fair. But then there was just like a lot of like going back and forth through the hallways, up and down the ladders, inside the Nautilus, looking for the place to go. They're like, oh, go to the core. And I'm like, I don't know where the core is. There's no arrows or indicators. You got to find those maps on the walls and kind of just like make your way there. And then there's a lot of obstacles in the way. So, I mean, it just was kind of like a drag. I kind of was hoping the game would start off a little bit better. It just did not kick off. And I was just getting kind of annoyed with like all of the fussiness that I needed to do before I actually got through the game. So, I mean, kind of a cool idea. I think the art style is neat. Every character is kind of really tall and spindly. And it was really kind of funny because it seems very stylized and I wasn't sure what they were doing with that. And then at one point you need to do a stealth section and you have to hide behind a smokestack. And because your character was so tall and spindly, he like totally fit behind the smokestack, which kind of made me laugh. I guess you could have made him regular human size and made a fatter smokestack. That would have been fine too. But it was just kind of funny that they chose to do everything so tall and spindly. It looks a little bit distinctive in a way. So overall, I guess it's an interesting kind of divergent take on what a point and click might be. And I don't really know how those time choices will be implemented further on in the game. I'm hoping that they will grow into something larger and have more ramifications, but TBD. So that's about as far as I got before I had to record the show. So not the deepest look, but it is a little bit intriguing. And using Jules Verne as the subject is not something we get all the time. So we'll see what happens. That is Verne, The Shape of Fantasy, playing that on the Switch. There we go. Next up is Star Trucker, which just came out on Game Pass a couple of days ago. I am not the biggest fan of like the trucking games, like all the, American Trucker or whatever it's called, or any of those Mud Runner type games. I think they're kind of neat. I think I like the idea of them, but it's on Game Pass and I figured what the heck. Also, I really do like that they set it in space. I love the sci-fi angle, so I think that was definitely enough to get me in. Basically, if you know what the words space and trucker mean, then you know what this game is. It's all right there. You are in charge of what looks like a 16-wheeler, like, big rig kind of a truck, but with like burners and lots of little thrusters and stuff on it. You're in space, and the game starts off with like the beginning of a good tutorial where they say, oh, here's how you control your truck, and these are what these buttons do. And then they kind of just like stop, and they go, here's the manual, read all the rest on your own, bye. And they just like stop, and I'm like, what the fuck, people? Like, I just starting your game just now. You had a good start here walking me through it bit by bit. Why don't you just finish the tutorial? But no, they don't. They leave you hanging with a lot of really important information unsaid. And so I ended up going back to the in-universe trucker's owner's manual, which is kept inside your glove box. I went to it many times, and I was just fucking irritated that they didn't walk me through more of this stuff. So you're a trucker. You're in the space truck. You start off with some cargo attached. And it's interesting because the back of your truck has like a big mag lock thing where if you move the camera around to look at it, you can do first person or third person. You can see like these giant electromagnetic beams holding your truck to the cargo, which is pretty cool. And so you just start trucking out, and they don't really explain a whole heck of a lot. So you just go to the nearest waypoint, get inside a warp thing, and then you warp to the next place. You deliver your cargo, and I guess part of this is just like manipulation of the vehicle, which is common to the genre, right? So you get there, they show you this like space ring you're supposed to drive inside. You got to get the cargo inside there, and the whole thing is just like really kind of touchy, which, you know, to be expected, right? You're a little bit too high, you're a little bit too low, you're kind of futzing around with it, trying to figure out the controls. It starts off with like aviation controls where down is up and up is down, and that worked for me. But then when you have to back up the truck, which is actually a surprising amount, which is really weird, the controls reverse, and then up is down is when you're backing up. And so that kind of threw me for a loop. I tried to mess with the controls a little bit, but I just couldn't find anything that felt supernatural. So I just kept the normal, the stock setup, which was okay. So you just kind of truck around. You get to where you're going. Sometimes you drop the cargo off in the rings. That's the easiest part. But sometimes you have to back your truck up to like a place, and that is the harder part. There's like a space station where you need to like park and get jobs. So you fly up to it in your space truck. First person is okay, but like it must be what it feels like to drive a big rig. I've never driven a big rig. And so like half your screen is like the hood of the truck because it's so large, kind of hard to see. So you can go to third person mode, and I feel like the camera is way too close to the truck. I want it to be further back, and I was trying to figure out how to get the camera to pull back. I don't think you can. They give you like 6 different camera views. You've got like under the truck, to the left of the truck, backwards on the truck, the other side of the truck, the good side of the truck. And like, they don't really give you like a pulled back further, wide out view. I think there is a setting to let you adjust field of view, but now that I think about it, I did not mess with it. So maybe that would be something to play with. But regardless, I think the camera is like pretty too close to the back of the truck, and that was kind of difficult. But you have to back up. You have a little backup camera like you do in some fancy cars, and you have to like back up, maglev on, and then you're in the station. Then you pick up some jobs, choose which cargo you want to go where. Of course, it pays more if the job's further away and if there's some kind of other obstacles in your way or something. And then you just pick up the cargo and go. And then you go through these space gates and just fly around. It's it's okay. It's okay. I like the design of the truck. I think the truck looks cool. And I like the idea of having to like manage the truck, but I wish the tutorial was better. Like right off the bat, I lost gravity, and I don't know why. It was just like, oh, lost gravity, your battery's dead. And I'm like, okay, cool. Where is the battery? And how do I change it? What do I do to fix this? And they don't tell you. So I had to go to the manual. And it's like, oh, your battery thing's under the stairs of the back of your truck. You have little stairs back there. And then you get a battery. And like, where the fuck are the batteries? Like, I don't know where they are. And I wasn't sure what I was looking for. And I didn't even know how this even worked. And so I eventually just was clicking around things at random, found the battery slot, took out the dead battery. I found another battery that was like floating around the cabin because gravity had given out. And so it was just like in the air, plucked it out of the air, put it in there. I mean, I eventually got there, but like, it didn't have to be so confusing. Like, you think if you're going to be driving a big rig, they would teach you how to do that. I think a little bit more of a tutorial would have been fine. So that was okay. But I have to say, I did get a little bit irritated at part of this. So there's settings. You can do a setting that's like more driving, less maintenance. You can do a setting that's more maintenance, less driving. You can do one that's balanced. I chose balanced. And then you can do extreme, where I guess just everything sucks and you're just like driving around. But I did a couple runs, didn't get a lot of money. Stuff seemed a little bit expensive. And I was kind of getting annoyed because as you fly through space in your truck, there's a shitload of like debris in space. And I'm like, isn't somebody's job to clean this fucking shit up? Like, why is there so much crap in space? And if your truck comes into even the slightest bit of contact with anything that's floating in space, you spring an oxygen leak, like right off the bat. So I'm flying through space. There's a little, I don't know, size of like a tennis ball, something comes towards me, like 4 seconds before it hits me, you get a little beep, beep, incoming object. You can't do nothing about it because you're in a big fucking truck. Like, you can't just like dodge out of the way. You don't have any like escape boosters. You got to just take it. All it does is just tell you you're about to be hit. Get ready, fucker, because you can't do nothing about it. And you can't. So you get hit by this thing, like just these tiny little glancing blows, and then all of a sudden, psh, leaking oxygen out into fucking space. And I'm like, what? Like, the first time it happened, I'm like, okay, whatever. Sure, they're teaching mechanics or whatever. Yeah, patch the leak. I went 5 feet, got hit again, and had 2 leaks. And I'm like, what the fuck? And I go out there, patch it again, go like in a spacesuit. You do a little EVA outside your ship, float around. I mean, that's fine, whatever. Patch that thing up, went through one of the jump gates. As soon as I got to the next gate, psh, hit another leak. And I'm like, this is dumb. This is stupid. It's annoying. And honestly, if the ship is this weak, like the slightest little meteorite can like punch a hole in it. And it's not even like something was shooting towards me. It was like a piece of junk floating in space. Like, you nudge something that's floating in space, you pop a leak. Like, your ship is not space worthy. And the weird thing was, like, you could be flying and it's not like the debris hit you like in the cabin. It's like it would hit your front fender, hits the front fender, and then it's like psh, and I'm like, why are we running oxygen through the front fender of this fucking truck? Is this entire truck just like a big balloon? Is this entire truck filled with air? Is that what's going on? This is ridiculous. I just got hit so many times with space crap, and I got so tired of fucking patching it up. I'm like, this is dumb. No. I'm not playing this. This is silly. So I think they need to fix something. Maybe you get upgrades later. Maybe you get better shielding, but honestly, if the trucks were this weak from the get-go, you would be losing space truckers left and right. People would be dying. They're frozen corpses abandoned in space with their abandoned cargo floating in free fall. Like, it doesn't make any sense. So that was really obnoxious. And just between that and just the general lack of info and stuff, I was like, whatever. I mean, kind of a cool idea, but not for me, I guess. So that was Space Trucker. I do not think I'll be coming back to it. It was kind of just like more irritating than anything. But I guess if you like those truck sims, like Euro Truck or American Truck or whatever, or Mud Runner or something like that, you know, maybe that's more your speed there. So go ahead and check that out. Final game of the show here is a special game. It is a recommendation coming to us from superfan Ron. Ron, what's up, my brother? Thank you very much for sending me the info on this one. Not only did you nominate this game, but you also sent me a link to it, which was really appreciated. This is called No One Has to Die. So this is a really interesting one. It is a visual novel, I guess, but it's also kind of like a, I don't know, just sort of a storytelling game where you make choices, branching choices. This is available for free. It's on Newgrounds. That's the link that Ron sent me. I went there. You can just click in and play the game right there in your browser. The entire experience altogether is like less than 1 hour, which is awesome because I love short, compact, fat-free experiences. That's exactly what this is. Just a heads up, the 3 people behind this game, and also apparently it won an award as well. Designed by Sammy Matafiglio, art by Cindy Shu, music by Jesse Valentine. So what is No One Has to Die? Number one, it's very funny as far as the title goes because a lot of people die in this game, and I found that to be pleasantly ironic. So the game is basically mostly text, like 80% text. You have a couple of very simple character portraits that come up. I think you have 4 characters total besides yourself, the player. And then there are maps that show up that are very simple, like grid-based maps, like really, really simple looking. Everything about this game is just real basic and lo-fi, but I don't say that in a bad way at all. I think it fits exactly what it needs to do, gets the job done wonderfully. No need for any hi-fi graphics. You don't need more pixels or more P's or anything like that. So what is this? So you play a person who is visiting an office building, and then a fire breaks out, and then you're all trapped in the building because I guess you can't get out, like the shutters come down or something like that, and you're all trapped. So you, the player, are in the security office, and you have access to various like buttons and panels and controls. You don't worry about any of this stuff. This is all just text for the most part. And then you talk to 4 people. Each person is trapped on a different part of the floor. You have a guy who's like an office worker guy. You have a woman who's an office worker woman. You have one person who says, I'm the one who started the fire. I wanted to kill you all. So he's apparently the murderer. And then you've got the guy who owns the company. He's like the CEO. He's like an older guy. And they're all in different parts of the building. You talk to them at first. They all talk about themselves a little bit. They say what's going on, why they're there, et cetera, et cetera. You get to know them a little bit. And then after you chat with them, you get to the map screen. And what the map screen is, it really kind of threw me for a loop at first, but once I figured it out, it was all good. So you look at a map of each floor, and they're very simple. I'm talking like 20 squares or something. It's not large at all. It's very, very straightforward. Everything has icons. So you see where the people are located on the floor. Each person takes up one square, and then there is a fire square, and the fire will spread to any square it touches in the next round. And then there's also a switch to turn on the water, like sprinkler system. And then there's also symbols for water when it means a room is full of water. Now, in this game, something that's a little bit unusual is that when you turn on the sprinkler system, so much water comes out, it will drown anything in the square that it's in. So it'll put out the fire, but if there's a person in the square, it'll drown them. They can't get out of the room. They're stuck. There's also locked doors that the fire cannot get through, like a fire door. So you've only got like 5 elements basically to work with, and then you see the people there. And as you get to the end of the discussion, you get to the map screen, and then they go, the game tells you not everybody can make it out. Like, one person is expected to die. You must choose one person. And considering the name of the game, no one has to die. I'm like, okay, is it just a mental challenge? Do I need to be smarter than the game? Am I trying to figure out how I can get people to survive? No. No, don't even bother. In almost every map, one person's going to die regardless. There's just no way to do it because you can't lock all the doors, or you can't flood all the rooms, and you can't stop the fire in time. So you're basically kind of choosing which person you want to die. So you pick one out of the initial 4, and then the whole thing branches off. Whoever dies, and then the 3 remaining people will tell you their responses to what you did, and they'll either like it or not like it, or they'll say how they feel about this. They go on, and then you go to the next map screen, and then the exact same thing happens again. Oh, one person's got to die because you can't stop the whole fire from killing everyone, so you can only choose to save a couple of them, and on and on. So you see the system here. It's very short. Since you've only got 4 characters, you're going to kill like one person each time until you get to the end of the game, and then you'll get like the ending for whoever it was that you saved. Could be the guy, could be the girl, could be the killer, could be the CEO or whatever. So, okay, so pretty straightforward, pretty simple. So what's good about this? I think the artwork and presentation, even though it's really, really basic, is really good. I think the portraits are good. The pixel art's good. Everything is there that you need to see. Nothing's there that you don't need to see. I appreciate the restraint the developers had here. I think the writing is really good also. It's short. It's to the point, but it's all packed with information and personality. You get a pretty good vibe for who everybody is in a very short period of time, which is no easy feat. And then to quickly negotiate this panicky fire situation with these 4 people is just great. They don't waste time. They don't talk about unnecessary feelings or random anime stuff. They don't go off on these weird tangents like in 999 or whatever. They just get right to the point, and they seem like real people when you're talking to them, which is great. In terms of mechanics, I think that once you understand how the maps work, and it took me like a minute to figure it out. It wasn't quite clear about the water and the switches and stuff, but once I figured it out, I'm like, okay, this is actually very simple. I get it. Now that's good. But I appreciate it's very easy interface to work with. You just need a mouse, nothing else. And once you get to the end of the story, it says this is not the end of the story. And it's not. And I'm not going to spoil anything because there's a pretty cool twist. There's stuff going on here, not just survival. I'm not going to say anything else about it because, like, come on. It's like a 1-hour game. If I say anything about it, like, I've ruined the entire experience. But I will say there is more to it, and you will want to go through and see all the endings. And what's great about this is not only is the interface really clean, when you get done with one storyline, it kicks you back to the last place where you could have made a choice, and you just go ahead and make a different choice. You don't have to watch the entire game from the start again. Any dialogue you've already seen, you hit a button, you skip it immediately. You are spending literally no extra time doing anything you don't want to do. It is just a masterclass in like super streamlined, minimalist design, and they really respect your time. When I got to the end of the first time, I was like, oh no. I mean, this is cool, but I don't want to watch all that dialogue again. And clearly the developers were like, yeah, we're not going to make you do that. Great. Thank you very much. I super appreciate that. So you bust through the whole game in a record amount of time. You only see the new stuff you want to see. You don't see the stuff you repeated. You get to the end. You see everybody's ending. There's stuff happening. I'm not going to say nothing, but, you know, secrets revealed, etc., etc. Something cool happens. And then you get to the end, and that's it. I thought it was great. I thought it was very well done. I would love to play like one game just like this per week for the rest of my life. That would make me so happy. Because it's just to the point, fat-free, exciting, cool twist, good writing. And this kind of fits in line with that whole idea of, you know, that phrase going around, I think I mentioned it already, where it's like, I want to play shorter games that are uglier and the developers get paid more. I don't know if they got paid more, but this is definitely a game that doesn't spend a lot of resources on graphics, and it's fine. I don't say that in a bad way at all. I think it looks fine for what it is. But they just get to it, don't mess around, deliver a bang-up experience, and it was really cool. So, Ron, thank you very much, man. I thought this game was total thumbs up. I had a great time with it. I'm really glad you recommended it. I would happily recommend it to anybody who wants to play a really cool visual novel experience. I just think it's the bee's knees, man. It was really good. So there you go. That was No One Has to Die. You can find it on Newgrounds for free. Get the whole thing done in an hour. Great stuff. Absolutely recommended. Okay, so at this point is when I was going to do those questions I mentioned earlier. I am not going to do the questions because I'm running out of time. I'm losing my mind. This week is getting out of control, and I got to get the show out the door. So, Ron, DC, and John, thank you very much for your questions. I will absolutely get to those in the very next episode. And in fact, the very next episode is going to be just questions. So hang tight for those. It's coming in just a couple of days because I'm already so late. And I'm going to just lean into wrapping up this episode so I can kind of just resume life as normal. Let's see. I'll just do a couple of movies real quick and then we'll bounce. I got a minute here. Before I go, let's just talk really quickly about the non-game stuff I like to bring up at the end of every show. I watched recently The Faculty, which was from the 90s. It had a bunch of stars that are recognizable from the 90s. And this was about a school where aliens come down and take over the teachers, and the teachers are evil, and the students have to fight back against the teachers. It becomes kind of a invasion of the body snatchers type situation. And it was like so 90s, like the emo music, the shitty hair, everybody just being kind of surly and everything. Like it was so 90s. But it was fun. It was a pretty good movie. I thought the effects were all right. And if you're in the vibe for like a 90s horror that wasn't really too scary, and it wasn't really, you know, it was what it was. Like it was very much like students fighting the teachers at this thing. So it worked out. The Faculty was pretty good. Also from the 90s, I believe, was People Under the Stairs. If you're familiar with Wes Craven's work, the guy behind Nightmare Before Elm Street. No. I'm mixing up my franchises. It's not The Nightmare Before Christmas, and it's not Nightmare on Elm Street. It's The Nightmare Before Elm Street. Someone please make that movie. No. Freddy Krueger, the Elm Street movies, Wes Craven. He did one called People Under the Stairs. And when I was a kid, this movie scared the fuck out of me. Like it freaked me out so bad. But that was a while ago, right? And I haven't seen it since then. And the wife and I were watching some horror. And I'm like, I want to go back to that one because I bet it would hit differently now that I'm so much older. And truth, yeah, that was exactly what happened. We watched it. It was really funny. I didn't think it was scary like at all. And it just really hit differently. Imagine the difference like 30 years can make, right? So it was about a couple who were like these weird psychos. They become these like slumlord landlord people, and they have a bunch of money in their house, and so people in the neighborhood want to rob them, but they've got all sorts of freaky shit happening inside their house, inside their basement, inside their walls, and so it becomes this weird funhouse horror show of like shit going down in their house. Pretty cool. It was fun, good times, a lot of laughs. The main character was a small boy who did a great job in his role, and I just thought it was really good. And it was interesting to be able to circle back to this and not be scared of this movie anymore, just to be like, oh, okay, I was only scared of this because I was like 10 or 12 or whatever it was, and it's actually not really that scary at all. So thumbs up to People Under Stairs. I thought that was actually pretty good. Last one we watched was The Frighteners. This is from Peter Jackson. This was an interesting one. Lots of stars in this one. I remember it being a pretty big budget production back then in the 90s, and it had Michael J. Fox as like the main character and lots of other stars as well. This was about a guy who can see ghosts, and he is friends with ghosts. They help him kind of run a business where he pretends to exorcise them for money. So he's kind of like a scammer, but he's also kind of like a nice guy. He just is getting by the best way he can. Seems like someone is killing people in this town, and so he has to figure out who's killing the people, and he gets help from these ghosts. It's pretty goofy and fun. It's directed by Robert Zemeckis, who did Back to the Future. So it's got a very similar Back to the Future vibe on it. Lots of action. It wasn't too scary, and it wasn't too funny or too family friendly. I remember this movie didn't do very well in the theaters, and I think that's why. Like, I think horror people didn't think it was scary enough, but I also think it was also kind of too scary for kids, because there's a few scenes where it gets a little bit gory, or maybe something jumps out at the screen. So I can imagine not taking your kids to this, but also if you were a horror fan, you would think this was like kid stuff and beneath you. So I think maybe they were batting for the middle ground and didn't quite get there. But if you're okay with one of those movies that is kind of in the middle, I thought it was a fun ride. I really enjoyed it. Special effects at the time were pretty groundbreaking, pretty cutting edge at the time. I mean, we look at it now and we're like, oh, okay, I see what they did there, but that's old kind of technology. But back then, when it was brand new, that was really something that people were talking about. But overall, Frighteners was not too bad. I would definitely recommend it if you want something that has that kind of like same, I don't know, Back to the Future plus scary sort of vibe to it. Zemeckis films all have kind of that feel to them. So if you're a fan, you're a fan. If you're not, you're not. All right, folks, that is going to do it. I got to get out of here and get the show out the friggin' door. Before the closing music, I would love for you guys to leave reviews, share the show on social media, and most important of all, please recommend SVG to your friends because nothing beats good old word of mouth. If you want to help support the show with the cost of running this podcast, you can do that over at patreon.com/the So Videogames podcast. And if you want to join the Discord, that is now free of charge. And as always, want to get your questions and comments, hit me up in the SVG Discord or email me directly, sovideogamespodcast@gmail.com, or hit me up on social media. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Blue Sky. It's my name, BradGallaway, all A's, no O's. And if you do have any questions, this is absolutely the time to send them in because next show is going to be just a question show. So go ahead and send them in and I will get to it, I promise you. And that is going to do it for episode 403. Thank you so much again for joining me here on the So Videogames podcast, and I'll see you next week. Or actually, I guess just in a couple days.